I'm your programming director, Justin Taylor. I'm joined alongside the CEO, the lead man, the director of One Hood Media, Mr. Jasiri X. King, welcome to town.
Oh man, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be in the new studio.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's get it.
Yo, shout out to all of the FSTV audience. Your generous donations have made our move into this facility possible. Couldn't do it without you. Forever, thank you. And again, special thanks to Denver Community Media. Can never say thank you enough to them and this facility. This place is phenomenal.
And I would say, like, now more than ever, like, these voices that's speaking out against what we see happening, you know, internally in the United States and all over the world. A lot of, to me, this moment is about, like, who has the mic.
That's right.
Whose voice is being recognized. And so to have a platform where folks can speak truth to power in a very unapologetic way is needed now more than ever.
That's what One Hood does, right?
Absolutely.
You guys do it probably better than anybody that we know of that's really rocking the mic on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and jump into it. You came into town with your son for a Nuggets game. We were talking about that, but you're here on business right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And you've been traveling a lot. We'll talk about your international endeavors.
Yes.
You're Mr. International now. Like, there's so many things that One Hood does and does well, but this particular moment in Black history does feel, frankly, too comparable to 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And it does feel like previous wins, previous progress is slipping away.
Absolutely.
It does feel like these corporations no longer even have to have what would you call it? A performative allyship.
Yes.
And then it feels like the hardships that have always endured in the Black community are about to get more intense.
True.
What does this particular moment in Black history mean to you?
It's deep, right? Because we are facing a time where it's interesting. I remember it was 8 years ago where people actually started feeling more comfortable even using the words white supremacy. Before that, it was like people would say it, but they were almost like whispering, like white supremacy, or like, but when we saw like the naked white supremacy of Trump's first term, it was like, oh, this is what white supremacy looks like, and this is how it's represented when he's talking about, you know, Black companies and Black neighborhoods and being very disrespectful. You know, I think he was the first president to like put no Black judges in the court. I mean, just doing this very obvious piece around like centering whiteness. Now, 8 years later, the full mask is off.
That's right.
And so what we used to see where we would almost have to like point it out, like, yo, here's some white supremacy and you might not see it, but this is how it really looks if you look behind it. Now it's just straight up. I mean, they just put a guy in the State Department as like undersecretary who came out and said, we competent white males have to run this. Yeah. And that's who has to be in charge. And so when you see Donald Trump, who has a decade after decade history of being a white supremacist, compared with or paired up with Elon Musk, right? An actual colonizer, somebody whose grandparents were in the Nazi party. But this is somebody who's very clear. Somebody who not only did a Nazi salute, but then to double down a week later by telling Germans, yo, you don't have to be sad about your past. Kind of like embrace that.
That's right.
Now we're seeing, so I think for our community, it's clear, right, that there's an effort at the highest level of government and combined with corporations to prevent Black people from even getting the bare minimum and the basics. And so it really brings us to a point of like, we have to come together and work together and unify. One of the things that we just did at One Hood was we put together what we call a Declaration of Solidarity, where we're saying, and we're bringing all these other organizations together. If you're attacking our immigrant brothers and sisters, our migrant brothers and sisters, you're attacking us. Those are our folks. If you're attacking our queer, trans folks, you're attacking us. These are our folks. And then you come after our community, like we all have to form together to say, as oppressed people, as people who are being right now marginalized at a rate that we've never seen, and we're only a few days in, right?
Yeah.
We have to come together in solidarity and say, we got one another. We keep us safe. And that's the work that we're engaging with One Hood. And that, to me, has been the Black experience in America, is when we've actually made the progress that we made, it's weird. We had to do it ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Hip hop came out of poor Black and brown folks in an area that didn't have resources that said, we're going to grab this turntable, we're going to grab this speaker, we're going to plug it in at the park, and we're going to, we're going to create something that never happened before in the midst of Reaganomics. And now we have the number one genre in the world. So this is the time that as Black people, we've been in before. And to me, it's about us using our creative power that we've always had to make something out of nothing. We are going to survive. But to me, the way we thrive is coming together in unity.
Yeah. And Black folks, historically, we're the catalyst for the intersectionality.
Absolutely.
It works because, you know, nobody's free until Black people are free, right?
1,000%.
Right. And so I want you to kind of speak a little bit more on the solidarity and what you've experienced post-election, because I think that is galvanizing.
Right.
And I think our audience and people out there need to hear it.
Right.
Particularly the people that are kind of feeling the pain.
Yes.
Still slightly depressed post-election.
Right.
Speak to some of the successes that you've already seen with those solidarity efforts.
Yeah, well, I think the first one was when ICE was unleashed. And we were told, right, that ICE was coming as soon as Trump got into office. And so I think the first act of solidarity was folks sharing information and saying, like, you don't have to answer your door. Like, these are the things, like when ICE comes, right, here are your rights. A number of, yesterday, February 3rd, was in Pittsburgh and a lot of different places all over the country, a day without immigrants, where businesses and solidarity and One Hood and solidarity, well, shut down, right? We're not doing any business. We're not doing anything because we're in solidarity with the immigrant community. And again, you're talking about a community who, the estimates that undocumented people alone contribute $100 billion to the economy. And so I think that was the first act of solidarity, was us saying we're going to stand with because when you start talking about birthright citizenship, it's like it might start with people that you deem immigrants, but then it's going to go to, well, when have you gotten to this country?
Sure.
And how far back have you been there? And don't think that as Black people, our birthright might come into question, or who's an American citizen. All this is on the table. So to me, that first standing with our immigrant brothers and sisters and making sure folks are safe is that first act of solidarity. But we know that it's only going to ratchet up, and they're only going to be able to do what we allow them to do. And so for us to say no more and take a stand, and if it's, they're kind of ripping up the Constitution from us right now. Right, but you're going to have to show us. And so I love the idea of us coming together and standing in solidarity with one another. It's work that we do on the ground in Pittsburgh, and we do nationally as One Hood, and that's work that we're going to continue.
Yeah, it's time to put the pressure on them.
Absolutely.
And kind of make sure that this bullying is actually worth something. And I think that you saw efforts in Chicago.
Absolutely.
Where people are educating their community.
Yeah.
And making sure that people do know their rights. And it's already starting to get under the skin of the Trump administration.
Right. You had the school saying, no, we're not letting you in.
That's right.
You had businesses saying, no, we're not letting you in. And so when we come together in that solidarity, it works. You know what I'm saying? It always works.
It does. Community organizing in general is on the backs of so many people in so many walks of life.
Right.
Everybody is not Martin Luther King. Everybody is not Rosa Parks. Everybody doesn't come with a name and recognition.
Yeah.
You're a man of the arts.
Yeah.
You're varied in that regard. Deep ties in PA.
Yeah.
Chicago ties.
Absolutely.
Travel the world. I want you to kind of share with our audience some of your influences, past and present, that motivate you, inspire you after you take a nail on the election. You're like, you know what, my bounce back is impeccable.
Yeah, man. My immediate mentor that I was blessed to spend a lot of time with before he passed was Harry Belafonte. I met Harry Belafonte in 2005 when he started an organization called the Gathering for Justice. I just happened to be there. Like, my friend knew the person who was executive director of his organization at the time, and we got invited, and never did I think that I would end up having this relationship with Mr. Belafonte, where I would go to New York and go to his house and sit with him and be one of these many young leaders across the country that he was able to pour into. And so there's actually a documentary that just came out called Following Harry, which is about the last 12 years of the organizing that he did with the Gathering for Justice, how he helped, the organizers of the Women's March, and all of these different things, the work that he did in the prisons, pushing back against mass incarceration. So this was a man who, you know, an EGOT winner, you know what I'm saying? First platinum record of all time in Deo, award-winning actor.
Yeah.
His main focus was the freedom and liberation of our community and our people. He sent me to Ferguson. When Ferguson jumped off,
that's special.
Mr. Belafonte sent myself and the executive director of the Gathering, Karma Perez, to Ferguson to identify people that he could support. And he always was somebody that was a fundraiser for the movement. And so I do think it gets into that aspect of also like, who are we supporting, and making sure that we're supporting like actual organizers and organizations. There's a big difference between an influencer and an organizer. Now, and that's not to dismiss influencers, because influencers play a pivotal role in getting messages out there, getting information out there, that can help actually turn the tide. But the organizers are the people that come together and put boots on the ground,
Mobilize the mission,
and actually are able to like change laws and change different policies, like we've been able to do in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I think you need the combination of both.
Yeah.
But there are so many organizations now more than ever that are going to be in need of resources because of what we're fighting up against. Now we're talking about a 24/7 onslaught that we have to battle against. And so that's the work that we're ready to put in at One Hood in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's nonstop. I find it very fascinating that you mentioned a man of the arts and Mr. Belafonte. And I want to transition there because the website for One Hood reads, and I want to make sure I get this right, so I'm going to read from the teleprompter.
Yes.
We seek to establish a platform for artistic expression to further the economic and creative advancement of artists.
Yes.
I have heard you discuss books, scholarly work, interview professors, but that quote is at the forefront of your website.
Absolutely.
The first piece of text. Why the emphasis on the arts at One Hood?
Well, to me, that's what moves. It's like when I started to do this work of organizing, particularly as an artist that entered into like a political space, where it's a space where people focus on the policies a lot, but oftentimes culture moves policy. And I think like we still haven't fully recognized the power of culture. And it's a cultural change always precedes a policy change. And so to me, this is why it's important for artists to be in that movement. Now, the deep thing about when, particularly we're talking about Black History Month and Black art, oftentimes Black artists created the culture, moved the culture, innovated, created things that we've never seen before, but didn't own the music.
That's right. And
so many of our greatest artists died broke and penniless, even though they created some of the most amazing songs that we've ever seen or movies, because they didn't own it, right?
Powerful.
So when you flash forward to now, I saw a stat a few years ago that said 9 out of every 10 working artists were white men. And so most of the artists that are paid every day to do their art are white men, right? And so for us, it was like creating a space where somebody could turn art as a hobby to this is what you do for a living, right? Yeah. How do you make your art the thing that you do on your everyday, and the power that you're able to do? You know, when I was a full-time hip hop artist, I was able to challenge all my creative activity into creating art. I created these songs that raised awareness around Trayvon and Oscar Grant, and all these different police brutality issues across the country, because like I was free to do that. Yeah. I was like economically had space to do that. I didn't have to have a second job or a third job. And so for us, it is about one, creating a space where we can get paid off of our, like, art is labor.
Your gift,
right?
Your talent.
Your gift, your talents, but also like to also have that ownership of it so that we're also benefiting economically from the works that we created, and we don't see that enough, and we want to see that more.
Yeah. All right, now bring this full circle for the audience here. Like, tie it all together. The arts, the education, the social justice at One Hood. You guys make it seem like Thanksgiving dinner at grandma's house. Like, it just comes together. All, but, you know, I want people to understand that you guys are in the streets.
Yes.
You know, I think for the FSTV audience, they might look at Jasiri, they might look at Farouk, Miracle, and Trouble, and think that these are just a bunch of talking heads.
Yes.
You guys take that art component and tie it all together
Right.
with activity and organizing and movement in the streets.
Absolutely. So I'll give an example. Like our first program that we started at One Hood was our Media Academy. The reason we started the Media Academy is because at the time in 2010, the Heinz Endowment did a study with the Pew Center about how specifically the media in Pittsburgh covers Black men. 90% of the time is crime. When it comes to quality of life stories about Black men, it was less than 3%. And so we created this academy where, one, we could teach young people, and at the time it was young Black men. And we ended up having a young sister come and say, look, I want to be a part of this. And we just opened it up to youth in general. But first to say, like, who controls media? Like the media and the things that are influential to you, do you know that we're not controlling it? We're not running it? That was the first push, but also give them the tools and the resources where they could create their own media to tell their own story, right? The power of telling your own story. And so like out of that, telling your own story, we had young people come and, not only be like artists, hip hop artists, we've created like hip hop. We had a young sister do like a one-woman play. We also had activists come through there. You know what I'm saying? We had an organization called Black Young and Educated that did all this activism in 2020 that we were able to help support, that brought a lot of attention to all of these things that was happening in the city. They did this thing called Civil Saturday, where every Saturday there would be a protest about all the things that would happen that went on for like 16 straight weeks. And so for us, it's like it goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Our creativity, our education, our art, all of it really comes down to like, how do we improve the conditions of our lives where we live? An interesting thing about Pittsburgh is in 2018, it was called the worst city in America for a Black woman to live. And so when we get that information, that was a study that the University of Pittsburgh did in coalition with the city, well, what do? And so we were able to take that information, actually make changes in the city. We were able to elect the first Black mayor in the history of Pittsburgh in 2021. We were able to elect the first Black congresswoman in Pennsylvania history in 2022, because it's like, yeah, we're artists, but if these policies are leading to a young man named Antoine Rose who was shot in the back 3 times by a police officer on video, and that officer was found not guilty because of the policies, we got to change these policies. We got to change who are our judges. Every judge in Pennsylvania gets elected. We had what we call a slate of 8. Out of that 8, we had 6 judges. 3 Black women get elected to the Allegheny Common Pleas judges. Allegheny County is the county where Pittsburgh is. And so for us, it's like, okay, we're artists, we have influence, we're educating, but how do we take all of these things and also use it to improve our everyday life? So to me, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
The art, the education, the civic engagement, the cultural organizing, because at the end of the day, like, it's one thing for like, I was successful as a hip hop artist, and I would travel, and then I would come home to the poorest Black community in the country, which at that time Pittsburgh was, right? And so to me, it was like, it wasn't enough for me to have success.
Yeah.
Like, how do we create something where we can improve the conditions of living for our community in the city of Pittsburgh? And that's why we do all of these different things. It's really, we just got into the houselessness. One of our people that's really like my brother, who goes by the name of Manny, started an organization called CRIP, Community Control and Resistance in Pittsburgh, helping to really support all of these folks dealing with houselessness in Pittsburgh, dealing with the criminal justice system. And his work has been so transformative that now he was nominated and he was added to the Allegheny Jail Board. He just was nominated as part of the Homeless Commission in Pittsburgh. And this was a brother that just saw a need, start coming out of his own pocket to help. And then we as One Hood said, well, can we help?
Yeah.
And now he has an organization that's truly making a difference. As we see houselessness like exploding across the country. And so for us, it is about like, where's the need at? Yeah. And yeah, we do art, but when folks needed masks during COVID, we handed out 2,000 masks. And so it really is for us about like, where is our community in need? And then we're going to try to create resources and raise resources to help our people.
And I'll wrap this question up on this, but I do think it's worth you mentioning, like, we're dealing in an era here where young men are more suicidal, where people are having larger identity crisis. I have to imagine, this is me going out on a limb here, but you know, when you bring them in and you let them express their gifts and express their thoughts, you see confidence, you see purpose, and you see a different person.
Yeah, and you see that growth because oftentimes they are in environments where people look at them and it's like, oh man, you ain't saying nothing. We had an ill situation where we brought the mayor to we have a program called We Keep Us Safe. And we brought the mayor to the program to take questions from all of our students, right? And what was dope was before the mayor came, this was led by Miracle. We had a conversation with the students about just what a mayor does. What can a mayor can do, what he can do. And when the mayor came, one of these students asked, this was a 15-year-old student, he said, Mayor, can you talk about something that you saw as a negative when you were a young person in Pittsburgh, that when you became mayor, you realized you had the power to change? And it was one of the greatest questions I've ever heard. I was blown away. I'm looking at this 15-year-old like, wow. It's like, so I think sometimes like we don't know the greatness and the intellect and the power that our young people have because we don't give them a chance to be heard. Yeah. And when we create a space where they can say, not only be heard, but feel comfortable being their full selves by whatever identity that they may have, then you see the greatness come out of them. And then it's like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Then for us, it's like, okay, well, how can we hire them and bring them on this boyhood and make sure we put some money in their pocket and keep developing them? So that's been our
water the soil.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, let's transition into a piece of this nonprofit work that I am continuing to get schooled up on. You're long tenured, you're seasoned in this nonprofit space, the 501c3s, and working with the government and working with other organizations. I watched an interview with one of your mentors, shout out Rosa Clemente. She was interviewing Kat Brooks. I've watched another one with Amanda Seals, and she's interviewing Dr. Melina Abdullah.
Yes.
Man, explain to our audience, for those that don't follow this closely and are not as aware, the disconnect between these organizations that fund organizations that do work in the community. There seems to be like this huge gap, and there is like a perpetual tension with those that provide the funding and those that take it and actually do something with those dollars and within our communities. Like, help us understand.
Yeah, a lot of times it's a twofold thing, right? So when you look at like a lot of Black and brown organizations, so again, when you look at a nonprofit organization, right? Most nonprofit organizations rely on private donors to fund so like most like white nonprofits, like 9 out of 10, it's private donors that are providing the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that support these organizations, right? But with Black and brown organizations, a lot of times most of our fundraising is coming from philanthropy. So who is philanthropy? A lot of times philanthropy is, some very wealthy people, organizations, or families that, was like, okay, we're gonna put some of our money to use to help these different communities, right? So again, the people at the top are oftentimes very removed from what's actually happening on the ground. And a lot of times, like people on the ground, you get into this work to help. Like you're volunteer, like, I didn't go to school to run a I'm an artist, I'm a rap artist, right? Yeah. I created something and then I had to learn on the fly how to write a grant, who to talk to, who are these different organizations that would give us money, how do we approach them? So you have to, a lot of times, like as organizers, you have to learn this on the fly. And, sometimes we might not, use the right language, or we might be a little bit abrasive in what we say, or we might be like, yo, just give us the money and
like the way I said.
Right. So sometimes it is that disconnect. And to me, I saw it the most in Ferguson, because I saw a lot of young Black and brown folks from the street that was moving what was happening on the ground in Ferguson. But oftentimes, though, they don't have the language. They tatted up, you know what I'm saying? They coming from, these different environments. So they don't really have the language to go in and be able to speak to these fundraisers. And so I saw people come in that wasn't connected to the ground, but knew the language.
Took advantage of the opportunity.
100%. And I think that's where, and in a way, can you blame these foundations, because they don't know. So part of it is for the foundation to do their research as to what's happening, who's doing this work on the ground, who's really moving and motivating people. And then it's also a part of, I think one of the reasons we're able to get support at One Hood is because we're very good at telling our story.
Yeah.
We're very good at, we document everything we do. We got videos, we got pictures. And so at that point, we can show you, oh, you want to see what we did last year? Here's 15, 20 videos to show all the organizing that we did. And that documentation and telling your story, like as you're doing it, becomes important in getting that support. But at One Hood, what are we doing? We're building up our private donation piece. And so that's for people in our community. If we have an organization there that we feel is helping us and moving us, even if you got $5 a month, and you could say, yo, man, this organization, they helped my child, they helped me I'm gonna get them $5 a month, I'm gonna get them $10 a month. If enough people do this, then we don't have to worry about what a foundation does, may or may not give. And so that's the piece. If you're watching Free Speech TV and we get, we have our blackmail segment, we get a lot of people emailing us.
Hold off on that. I got that.
Yeah, I got that every month. Give every month. If you're inspired by the what you see at Free Speech TV, again, we're not saying you got to give $1,000, but if you got, hey, yo, I'm gonna set $20 aside, and every month I'm gonna get a Free Speech TV because I really appreciate what they do. Enough people do that, it goes a long way.
Yeah, and shout out to all of the FSTV audience, 85% donor run. You guys make all of this possible, and it does keep us out of these compromising situations that you're detailing where
Absolutely.
The money is I don't know, just too much of an influence in the room. And that is what Cat Brooks was kind of speaking to.
Yeah.
Let's transition into your international endeavors.
Yes.
You're becoming a diplomat of sorts here, not only for PA, but for the United States. You just recently took a trip to London. I understand that had some United Nations weighed into it as well. Share with our audience what that entailed and what you were doing out there.
Yeah, I was invited to the United Nations, and I was invited to participate in a conference where it was really about AI and the global South. We have this revolution of AI happening all over the country, right? I mean, all over the world. You just had, China create a new AI, right, that's challenging now the American system, that started messing with the stock market, right?
Messed with the stock
market. So, I'm somebody that, I was actually invited by Van Jones to a AI conference in 2023 with Van Jones and Will I Am. It was really about we got to get AI to the hood and to our community. So it was dope to go to Geneva and see a conference led by, Black and brown people from Antigua, from Nigeria, from Ghana, talk about how these countries are dealing with AI, how they're protecting their data, and how a lot of these young people are going to be the ones that create. When you look at African countries, a lot of times you're talking about countries that have the youngest populations all over the world. A country like Japan, whose population is aging to the point where it's scary, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to these African countries, the average age of these countries might be 16, 17, 18. And so it was dope to hear how folks were moving in AI and how they were developing platforms for us to become creative in that. So that was super dope. I had a really great time. I ended up going to London because I'd never been. And so before I hit Geneva, I went to London. And, I did the regular stuff, but I went to Brixton. And it was dope for me as a hip hop artist to go to Brixton, which is a Black community in London, and see Biggie on the wall and Tupac on the wall.
Saw those.
Jam Master Jay on the wall, and be like, yo, look at the influence that this hip hop that came out of America. There was I went to this one hip hop place, and they had a picture on the wall, and it was NWA in front of a sign that said, welcome to Brixton. And I'm like, damn, here's NWA and Eazy-E, you know what I'm saying? Connecting to the folks in England. Yeah. And so it's like this common language where hip hop becomes a common language where you walk in, it's like, yo, I'm part of hip hop, and you automatically family, you know what I'm saying? And so that was, that was really dope. And it really was like, I want to go back. I want to kind of engage with our community more. You've told us, and John has told us that we have an international audience. And folks are listening to us internationally. And so we want to definitely incorporate that more, particularly as we see what's happening around the world, right? Where we see what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in the Congo.
Yes.
And again, to me, that's about the Sudan, right?
Yeah.
It's about like, when you have, first, it's about like whose voice matters.
Yes.
And because if your voice doesn't matter, then your life doesn't matter.
Yep.
And so,
Stories not told.
right. So when you can,
Not in the AI engine.
right. So when you can marginalize a group of people, whether they be Africans or whether they be Palestinians, then, you know, their lives take on less value to us because we don't see them and see their stories. That's what the power of social media, and to go back to those influence is like, we saw people sharing, like we saw in real time, like what was happening in Gaza, right?
Yeah.
Like we were watching it. And so we didn't need
it's like,
right.
we're clear.
And we didn't need like the news to bring that to us.
Yeah.
And because the news oftentimes will sanitize it, we saw firsthand what was happening. We're seeing what's happening in Congo, and we're able to connect that to this oppression that we see happening right here in the United States of America. And so again, it's that solidarity, right?
Right.
We need that solidarity of community, but we also need that international solidarity. We just did an event in Pittsburgh where a Palestinian brother and an Israeli brother came to talk about, like, we're investing in peace, right? This is Aziz and Moaz.
Yes.
You know,
Miko did an interview with him at Never.
right. We saw them in Netroots. We brought them to the city, and it was about like, we invest all this money in war, but who's investing in peace and who's investing in the peacemakers? And that's the work that we do at One Hood.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but to me, a lot of it is like, who is telling these stories? Who gets the mic? And then whose voice is valued? That is so important right now. And so the places that we can have our voices heard and our stories told become even more valuable now, more than ever. And so we just want to continue being a place where we're able to tell those stories, where we had these two gentlemen come and tell their respective stories and how they're coming together for peace. And we just want to continue to do that more.
I appreciate it. It's necessary. You know, we can see it in the national defense budget.
Yeah.
Like where the money, where the funds are going to. You see it on these analysts and hosts that have been on like the big networks historically. These people have ties to big national defense money.
And it's no coincidence
It is not.
that now they're talking about taking money away from PBS and taking the money away from NPR. Why? Because this is oftentimes where people get educated as to what's happening all over the world, where people listen to A Democracy Now!, which is also aired on Free Speech TV, right? And find out like, oh, I didn't even know that was happening. Oh, wow, I wasn't aware of that. You know what I'm saying? It's so much I learned about like how much Canada and is intertwined with United States business. I had no idea.
Mexico, right.
Like, wow, Canada controls like that much of our energy. Like I had no idea. And so like, you want to me, it's very clear that this current administration, and you can't really have fascism if people are intelligent.
Yes.
You have to, people have to be unintelligent. So to me, it's a purposeful dumbing down
That's right.
of people so then they could just use you and play you out. You know what I'm saying? Egg prices is as high as they've ever been. Yeah. So it's like, oh, you thought this man was gonna come in and make the economy better? He's making it worse. But it's like you was duped, and you dupe people by limiting the information that they have. And so, of course, they're going to say, no, we don't need PBS and NPR because we don't want people to not understand what's happening. Yeah. We want people dumb. You know what I'm saying? We want to ban TikTok because when you said where young people getting their news and information, 9 out of 10 are getting their news and information from TikTok. Oh, we got to ban it.
And communicating resistance through these platforms.
Yeah. But I will say this. And while we're seeing all this happening, this is why it's also important, like you mentioned earlier, to have boots on the ground. Yeah. Like, yeah, have your phone, do your videos, but it's also important to find out who your neighbor is, to knock on doors, to be in your community, to have real relationships with real people, because if they take those apps and our ability to communicate away, they can't take away a face-to-face. Yeah, 1,000%. That's why that on the ground work is important in Denver and in Pittsburgh.
And I'll ask you this because you've already brought up the international countries and the atrocities that have taken place: Gaza, Sudan, Congo. and the world got a little bit smaller for everybody in like the snap of a finger, you know, a year and a half basically, and you can go longer if people were paying attention to Ukraine and to how that moved. How has Onehood incorporated these global resistance into what you guys are doing in your community?
Well, I mean, a lot of that resistance also had like a local piece, right? So it's also like organizing, right, with the community. And for us, it was also like speaking about it on Free Speech TV, on our show. I remember the episode that we did when October 7th happened, and it was really like, are we going to talk about this? How are we going to talk about it? And being able to also have a platform where we could talk about some of the, you know, issues that we had, and really to talk about it from the aspect of like for Black Americans.
Yeah.
Right? And what we see and how we're seeing it and how it's affecting us, but also how we can begin to mobilize to help all the things that are happening. That's been the illest thing to me. You know, I remember a reporter came up to us and was like, oh, you know, how are you all talking about, you know, what happened post October 7th in your organization? I'm like, yo, we got like 6 episodes. You can just go, you just go listen to what we're saying. And we was arguing amongst ourselves, but it was that piece. So I think like it is important to be connected. And I think this is why some of these moves are happening, to try to disconnect us as communities. A lot of this election was about disconnecting us in very well, like trying to blame like the communities that had the least amount of voices, you know what I'm saying? To disconnect us from our queer trans folks, to disconnect us from, you know, our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And now, and the result of that is, you know, one of the most fascist regimes that we've ever seen. And so to me, one of the things that showed is like moving forward, we can't marginalize, we can't say we're for peace, justice, and all of these things, right? Solidarity, and then move away from the most marginalized folks. Because to do that means that we sold out the very things that we say we stand for. And then what do we're left with? We're left with Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, number 47
in the country.
You said it. Yeah, no, you said it. And I encourage people to continue to grow in your international knowledge. You know, the stuff that's happening in Africa. Shout out to the Breakthrough News team. They do a great job of highlighting Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and the unity that's going on there, and that resistance to Western culture influences, resource extraction. Again, go get some game, go get schooled up, and you'll see the parallels that are happening in your community and that have happened historically with Black folks. Let's talk This Week in White Supremacy. Let's get you out on a plug, a shameless plug, but to let the people know, you guys have recorded over 200 episodes. I believe you're on 215 right now. This is a really serious question. Let the people know, how in this era of content creation have you managed to muster up 200 episodes of content on white supremacy?
I mean,
it's hard, right?
Because America,
it's hard. It's gotta be hard.
Because America keeps giving us more shit than talking about now. It's more than ever. If we thought about we was gonna go away, we have, so a lot of times, you know, we had so much more than an hour because of all the crazy stuff. But really for us, because we really approach it to laugh, it's therapeutic. It's therapy for me to come and sit down with people that I love and care about and kind of like not only educate people, but also kind of laugh at all of this craziness that's happening all over the country. And so for us, it is about educating, informing, but also entertaining folks about what's going on. I thought it was dope. Like the first episode, if you watch the last episode, that was the first episode I wasn't on.
Yeah.
Because I was in Geneva. And they held it down, did an amazing job. You know, people texting me like, yo, the show was really good. So I'm appreciative of that. So it's like, all right, if I gotta go somewhere, but we're still, we have interviews planned, some amazing interviews planned, some amazing folks we wanna highlight. And so that's powerful. And then I also wanna shout out Miracle, because Miracle has another show she developed called Brunch with a Black Man that is around like mental health conversations with Black men, over food. That's super dope. That's going to launch in March. So again, for us, it is having a platform to like tell our own stories. And so if you want to hear about all this craziness that's happening in the world from the perspective of like 4 Black people that are in the streets doing the work in the community, and that also got some jokes, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Tune in to This Week in White Supremacy and you'll have a blast.
Keep tuning in.
Yes.
All right, here's an ironic but serious question, more serious than the last one.
Yeah.
You talked about the blackmail segment. I remember when we first launched This Week in White Supremacy on FSTV, we started to receive hate mail.
Yeah.
You were talking about it on the show.
Yeah.
How much racist hate mail does one hood get for the production that is This Week in White Supremacy?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. We get supporters, but a lot. And I think like it's interesting because we'll get like hate from people that just see white supremacy and think that by saying white supremacy, that in itself is racist.
Yeah.
Some people will then say, looking at white supremacy and say, oh, you're upholding like white being supreme. Like, nah, that's not what we're doing. We're actually trying to show like how this is hampering, because white supremacy is damaging to white people as well. Yes. You know, so we do get, I mean, so that's the main thing. People see white supremacy, they try to listen, but they don't really, it's hard for them to get, it's hard for them to get past the title. But but we also get a lot of support, a lot of love, a lot of people like buying merchandise and supporting the work that we do. So it goes both ways, but we do have fans of the show, people that love the show, people that's like, yo, I tune in to Free Speech TV for y'all. And so it is, but we do, obviously, I mean, we was getting racist hate mail anyway, you know what I'm saying? Just in Pittsburgh for the work that we do. And so to me, it's like, keep running them numbers up, man.
That's right.
Love us.
I got your ear. Right?
Run the number. If you want to hate watch, if you want to hate comment, by all means, keep it up.
Yeah, you know, we've gone a little bit long, but you know, there's a little bit of nugget for the haters.
Yeah.
Time.
Yes.
All right. Last question. If you could arrange one interview with you, Miracle, Trouble, Farouk, who is it? You've done all kinds of interviews. You know, I've seen Bun B, I've seen Kerry Washington, I've seen one of the first episodes, Dr. Ujuanya. You know, you've had all kinds of interviews. I mean, is it a hateful, racist? You know, is it Trump or Elon Musk, or is it somebody on a more positive?
I'm gonna be honest. If I had one interview to do right now, I want to interview Drake. Okay. I have so many questions. A lot of feelings. Did you watch the Grammys? Are you going to tune into the Super Bowl? I have a whole, you know, I mean, a rapper that sues over a battle rap. Yeah. I mean, like, I just have so many questions for Drake.
What's the mirror feel like?
Right. Like, do you, I mean, you know, he came out and said in the defamation lawsuit that Kendrick calling him a colonizer was anti-Semitic. Does he really believe that? How does he see his place in this current hip hop? You know, so I think to me, I have so many questions that I would love to ask Drake. It'd be a 5-hour interview. Of course, he's never going to sit down with us. So I would say Drake on one hand, and I also would love to interview Barack Obama. I met Barack Obama.
All right.
I spoke to him very shortly. Somebody said to me was, wow, we can talk about it off site. Yeah, but I won't reveal that, you know, to the audience. I think like I would love to talk about Obama and just his career. You know, how to me, a lot of what we're seeing is kind of this white lash to Obama's presidency.
That's right.
Obama built this huge, when he was president, organization, Organizer for America, that kind of went away. Where did that go? You know, so I have a million questions, like, but again, like, what were you kikiing with Donald Trump about? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you kiki with somebody that's attacked your wife? Like, I have so I would love to also interview Barack Obama and have those conversations about, like, how does he see what's happening right now? And to me, I believe he's the greatest politician of all time, personally, but I will have some real, again, hard questions. So if we can get Obama and we can get Drake, we can call it a day.
Lights out. Yeah. Lights out. There you have it from the man himself, Mr. Jasiri X. Yeah. Peace. Thanks again for getting here.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, tune in to This Week in White Supremacy and stay tuned.
Tune in to Free Speech TV. You already know.
You already know.